Hey guys, welcome to my thing, and I am really excited. Yeah, I mean, I don't like to be observed.
Hey, Matt.
Greetings, Michael.
Are you ready to do another podcast together where we help each other? I go first, then you go, and so on and so forth?
We can't go at the same time?
Only if you're really good at it.
Then yes.
All right. Welcome to Hacking the Grepson, a programming podcast where we talk about development and programming. And usually, when one programs, they do it alone. I guess you could say that's frowned upon sometimes, and actually it's better if you do programming with someone else. Help each other out. One person does something, the other person does something back, and so forth and so on in a cycle. And they even have a name for this kind of programming. It's called pair programming. One person brings the fruit, and the other person carves it. And then you each feed each other with pieces of... No, sorry, that's the wrong pair.
Oh. I was like, I don't know this analogy you're going for. Oh, okay.
No, pair as in duo, as in couple, as in P-A-I-R in the English language.
Oh.
So I don't think I've ever actually done pair programming in the, Wikipedia definition of it, which I will just read real quick. It says, pair programming is a software development technique in which two programmers work together at one workstation. One, the driver, writes code, while the other, the observer or navigator, sounds so highfalutin, reviews each line of code as it is typed in. The two programmers switch roles frequently. So, it sounds like one person is coding, the other person is, kind of captaining, and then they switch. Have you ever actually done this technique, Matt?
I don't think... I've always been much more of a solo developer. I'm really, that's where I got my start. I got most of my practice in being a solo developer, and
Yeah.
I'm very good at it.
Like as a teenager, you probably did a lot of solo programming.
Especially then. I've self-taught, for the most part, until I went to college. And then...
Oh, wow. They have classes for that now. Interesting.
In college, it was probably the closest I came to pair programming, because we were in the lab, and so I'd have people working directly with me there. But
a lot of experimentation
in
college,
Exactly. I mean, that's what college is for.
Yeah.
But since then, no, not so much. Never in the workplace.
Oh, right. Well, I mean, some companies are into that, but most of them have policies about that kind of thing. So when I think about pair programming, I mean, it seems like one of those things where any complicated task, like programming, like trying to tell a computer how to do things, is easier with another person because you have someone to bounce off ideas of. And also the actual inputting of the code, the text into the text editor. It's good to do that as much as possible to get practice, but you want to switch because you don't always want to be the one doing the manual entry. You want to switch that up, and you also want to be the idea critiquer person, I guess. But when I'm programming,
right, you want both people in both roles to be satisfied, so you probably want to switch off.
That's right.
Between them.
Exactly. That's a very salient point, Matt. I'm glad you said that, and let's put a very fine point on that. But when you're programming, you're thinking, you're typing, you're deleting, you're thinking, you're typing, you're deleting. You're kind of doing a lot of things all in kind of a cycle in your head. And I would think that having another person watching you while you're doing this kind of technical, intense task could be uncomfortable or overwhelming, or it just, you program differently when somebody's watching you versus when you're doing it alone. Would you say that is true?
Yeah. I mean, I don't like to be observed. Just in general, that's a thing. I don't really like people watching me do anything. Mm-hmm. I don't think I could even write code if people were looking over my shoulder kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I think I know that wouldn't work for me because I need to go at my own pace, my own rhythm. I take breaks. Like you said, it's a lot of it's in my head. I know people that are really, really, really into pair programming. I am not one of those people.
Yeah, if you do anything, you change how you do it when you're being observed. I was just listening to a podcast actually about these two YouTubers, and they were saying that they were talking about this idea of YouTube voice and how, like, when they're talking normally.
Hey guys, welcome to my thing, and I'm really excited.
Exactly. Yeah, like you know that when you're performing for someone else versus when you're not performing, like you kind of change how you act because there's an expectation that you're going to be better or you're going to be more engaging when someone's watching you. And so pair programming kind of feels like an audience of one that's always watching you. And if you're just sitting there thinking and you're not typing, it feels like you're not performing. It feels like you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And so I would think that, you know, that person watching you, even if they're talking and saying like, okay, well, let's see, what should we do here? It looks like you've done this, but last time I did it, you know, but if you're not typing, you know, it's like this old adage of like, you know, managers judging value of programming by lines of code that you did that day. And so every second you're not typing a line of code is somehow wasted value, when I think now we really understand that like there's people that go against that. They're like, you know, if you remove code, that's a better day. You know, because
I agree with that.
Code is a liability. Get rid of the code, like as little code as needed. And so pair programming would almost seem like it would reinforce those old ideas of like, if I'm not doing something right now, if I'm just thinking and mulling, that I'm not producing value. And so that would be, you know, a negative.
I mean, when's the last time, Mike, that you sat down at your computer and just wrote code? like you were writing an essay or like just I don't write code like that.
Yeah, or like as if you were transcribing
data
something.
entry?
Yeah, like if you were in a courtroom and people were talking and you were constantly typing because people were talking all the time. Yeah, that's not how coding works.
The other thing is, most engineers I know, software developers, are fairly introverted. Who wants a person right there while you're doing this thing that you enjoy doing? Mm-hmm. They say they're helping, but I mean, I would just find it distracting.
So I forgot your specific answer to whether you've actually done pair programming before. Have you done it like this?
The closest I've come to that is like I said, in college, in the lab. Like, if we were working on the same project, sometimes then like one person would take the wheel and be typing while the other person, and that specific that, you know, where you're solving a very specific problem together can work. Mm-hmm. I don't think it could ever work for me in the workplace. I genuinely, I think the problems I'm solving there are very different. In school, you have it's almost like tactical, right? I have this specific, bounded, discrete problem to solve. And there's an answer. I have not had that ever in my life, in my work. It's like, okay, here's this large project we're doing. And also, while you're doing this, keep supporting this other thing. Also, while that's happening, you need to, right? I'm never doing one thing at a time. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work, and the problems are way less bounded.
You know, I love the word tactical that you use because it makes me think of like board gaming and how you can definitely like rank a board game's value in terms of strategy versus tactics. And usually, I think of tactics as being like reacting to the situation that's unfolding, whereas strategy is more like chess, where you can just sit there and stare at the board for as long as you want and think about several moves ahead. What am I going to do? Like what am I going to do and how am I going to do it? As opposed to how do I react to a thing that's happening right now?
Exactly. Yeah. I use that. Maybe this would be a good topic for a follow-on podcast, but I talk about the difference between tactical and strategic in software development all the time in my job. Yeah. It's a trade-off that we're constantly making.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely some meat on that bone, so to speak.
Have you ever done a code jam or like a 24-hour, 48-hour let's do a thing
I have tried,
Okay.
and I just I don't think I made for that kind of thing. It just I can't code on demand. I have to be in the right
Perform,
mood.
Code Monkey.
I've always been that way.
Yeah.
Which is why I like working from home, because sometimes at 2 a.m. I will wake up and be like, ooh, and run to my computer and code. And also sometimes at 2 p.m. I'll be like, I'm tired, and I'll go take a nap, right?
Yeah.
That's why I like that.
Like a cat.
I have to be in the right mood.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that on the writer's block episode, actually.
Yeah. And that really gets into the more strategic part of programming, and that it just, you don't really know when the perfect strategy is gonna hit you. You know, it just kind of happens in a ethereal kind of plane that we don't have direct access to. But I was thinking, yeah, I actually did like a code jam with my friend Dave, who is a very good programmer. We had to make a game in 48 hours or something like that. And I remember we all got together at our house, and we had like 3 or 4 people, and he was doing the main programming of the game. I don't remember what language it was in. And I think I did I did music. That's right. I did music for it. And some other people did design or, just, kind of bigger picture kind of stuff. And that was probably the closest I ever came to pair programming, kind of like watching, Dave program and maybe like talk about some of the things that were coming up. But yeah, if I were Dave at that point, I definitely would have just wanted to okay, it's sort of more like I want the waterfall idea. Give me all the things that I have to do, and then I'm going to go and do those things. And if I have questions, I'll ask about them. But we don't need to do them together at the same time. I was thinking when I first started this new job and I was in person for a week with my team, we started out by saying, okay, let's go to the code base, go to this list of issues, good first time issues for someone who's never touched this repository before. Choose the first one. And I chose the first one and I read it, and my more or less lead was next to me, and he was like, okay, what does it say? Read it. And I read it, and I'm like, okay. And I was basically expected on the spot to start hacking that problem. And I guess that's sort of pair programming. And I remember feeling very, not paralyzed, but just I'm just going to start editing this file while you watch me. And it was so weird how as soon as that time was over and next week I was back home remote and working, that I felt much more comfortable. And so I guess I'm just like you in that it's just it triggers something in me, the whole performance gene that I feel like I'm being forced to perform as opposed to choosing to perform, and it really locked me down. So yeah.
Yeah, if anything, that gives me more writer's block for writing code. What's interesting is I'm I scrolled down a little bit further in the Wikipedia article because that's the most trusted news source online.
It is these days.
And they have a section on satisfaction. Now, granted, this was in the year 2000. So before I entered the full-time workforce, just barely, 96% of programmers stated they enjoyed working more while pair programming than alone. And 95% said they were more confident in their work when they pair programmed. Now, I will say that second sentence about being more confident in their work, I think that's probably true. Because the one aspect of the way that pair programming is described, in particular in the Wikipedia article, is that you're actually getting a code review. Because I've been in this industry for a while.
Let me tell you some stuff. No.
And code reviews suck. They're not done correctly. Mm-hmm. When you're more of a junior engineer, they make a lot of sense because you need someone to go and make sure you're not dividing by 0 or whatever. But the more senior you get, the more complicated the problems are, the harder it is for anyone to really you're not going to find those kind of problems. You shouldn't find those kind of problems. The compiler should find those kind of problems,
right?
Or your unit test should find those kind of problems. But so code ends up getting not reviewed at all a lot in my experience, and I think that's not good. I think reviews are often very cursory. This was true. I spent a weekend one time, I will not say what company I was working for, where we were being audited, and it said that we did code reviews. I went home with a literal stack of code, like printed out, and just signed things for hours. I didn't review anything. I didn't have time. I scanned the code as best I could. Wow. That was, that's process for process sake, and I'm not okay with it.
Yeah.
So that aspect of it, I like the idea of it. But I'll tell you a different take on pair programming that I do like. And I don't know if it is technically pair programming, but I heard about it at the same kind of time, which is where you take a problem, you kind of do the design together, which is a part I absolutely, pair design, 100%, that works great. Once you have that design, let's say you're writing a class, and here's the class, here's the interface. We kind of all agree to that. And then you would go off and write the unit tests for it, and I would go off and write the code. And like that works in my mind. But working together at this same terminal, I mean, like it always makes me think of that NCIS, I think it was NCIS clip where like two people are literally typing on the same keyboard. And I'm just like, what? No. What? No, you can't do that.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly that the pair design thing, because it's like brainstorming. It's like, how do we solve a problem? Like there's no bad ideas at this point. Throw it all on the wall and then we'll see what sticks. But the implementation of it in a programming language in a text editor is, it's different. It's different, and there's something where you need the solo time to hash out something and then, talk about it later. Okay, you implemented it this way. Like you use this particular algorithm, and then you can talk about, well, why did you do that? But the actual typing of the bubble sort, that you don't need someone looking over your shoulder on that. And the fact that, whether you put a semicolon at the end of a line or not, like you said, all that kind of stuff, especially at my new job, which I love and is making me a better programmer, does all that ES linting and style linting and prettiering and the convention of how you write the code is, it should be automated at this point, at least when you're on a team. So everybody is, when you see code and the way it's written stylistically, you shouldn't be too surprised. But then we get to why did you do it that way? Or why, how did you do it that way? Not literally, did you use a semicolon at the end of the line or not? That's too into the weeds. But when you're pair programming, it's all the same soup that someone is looking over your shoulder. And so how is that useful? I don't know.
Apparently 96% of people that have done it like that.
Let's look up the
or
citation
they liked
for
it
that.
25 years ago.
I mean, okay, I'm trying to think of the programming world in 2000 versus now, and how, the internet wasn't nearly a thing. I think all the linting and the automation of this stuff didn't exist.
Yeah, that wasn't, yeah.
So
I could see it kind of then. My first job out of college was, technically I was still in college, but my first real programming job was in 2001. So not too far after this, and I don't think it would have worked there either, but we did have to do. I felt like code reviews and unit tests and just generally having someone validate that I'm not an idiot made a lot more sense then. But also, I was fresh out of college, and we didn't have all these things that we have today, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, I don't want another person there while I'm doing this. I don't even work in an office with people. I work in my house.
Yeah.
in this room.
Yeah. I feel like this podcast is not really for getting into the real nitty-gritty psychologically of why you and I may prefer to do that over pair programming, because I think there's some deep-seated stuff that is informing that feeling that is not really the scope.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah. But because like you said, you don't really want an audience when you're doing anything that, takes kind of this like cycle of hashing and writing and editing and deleting and thinking. It's just, because like you said, most of it's in your head. So, there's not a lot that's,
I do wonder though if like extroverted people are more inclined to pair program.
But then would they be programmers?
I know several extroverted programmers. But it also makes me think of like I know you said go away from the psychology, but no, I'm not going to. I know there's a thing with like ADHD in particular where sometimes it's difficult to get something done, but just having another person there will kind of like push you over that. There's a term for it that I'm blanking on right now. But it's like they're not helping you with it necessarily, but they're like in the room with you.
Mm-hmm.
and something about that like helps you break through the executive dysfunction.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for me. Despite the ADHD, like that does not work for me.
So I clicked through to this study that they were using as their citation for the 2000 96%, and I just want to read this. It's sort of like a firsthand my first pair programming experience, just because I'm curious what you think about this. It says by Ron Jeffries, like most programmers, I had done some pair programming, usually when working on something particularly tricky or doing some difficult debugging sessions. Although Ward Cunningham had recommended full-time pair programming a few times, my first experience with quote-unquote real pair programming came on the blah, blah, blah. I was sitting with one of the least experienced developers working on a straightforward task. Frankly, I was thinking to myself that with my great skill in small talk, I would soon be teaching this young programmer how it's really done. Pew, pew, pew. We hadn't been programming more than a few minutes when the youngster asked me why I was doing what I was doing. Sure enough, I was off on a bad track. I went another way. Then the whippersnapper reminded me of the correct method name for whatever I was mistyping at the time. Pretty soon, he was suggesting what I should do next, meanwhile calling out my every formatting error and syntax mistake. Okay, ugh on that line? Ugh.
Seriously.
I'm not entirely stupid. I noticed very quickly that this most junior of programmers was actually helping me. Me! Can you believe it? Me! With exclamation marks. Since then, that's been my experience every time in pair programming. Having a partner makes me a better programmer. Ward was right, as usual. So, what do you think about that?
There was one thing in there that jumped out at me. I'm like, oh yes, that is a good use of pair programming. And I have done that, which is debugging. Debugging is a time when I have had, we'll like share screens or someone will come over or we'll be in the same room, both looking at the same code and talking about it. Mm-hmm. And that absolutely is that's good, right? Like you're trying to solve a problem together, but it's because again, it's a very narrow scope. You're working on a specific thing. I never do that. I'm not transcribing something. I'm writing code and trying to figure out the best way to do it, and usually experimenting as I go. And that's not a thing I can do while someone's there. Like, oh, you missed a semicolon. Also, I don't think that if you're doing a pair programming where you have a super junior person and a
senior
mentor person, I think the junior person should be the one at the computer writing code.
Yeah.
Like that's how I would catch things.
Yeah.
I do like the idea though of someone watching, of teaching someone how to approach problem solving and like coding at that level and like why did you do it that way? I found it interesting that he was like, oh, I was doing it wrong with that. I was like, I ask why all the time just to understand. No, but why? Is there a good reason to do it that way? Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. But I don't know how to make that work. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I think that the term pair programming, like a lot of terms, it's a question of scope, and there's a lot of different scopes that you could use for pair programming. Like you said, at the very beginning of a project where you're just designing it, to actually implementing kind of the skeleton of something to the debugging of a specific issue, or just the how do we implement this one specific feature, not even debugging yet, but just like how do we approach this specific part of a project, and then oh, a bug came up, how do we fix it? So there's a lot of different scopes, and I think you have to narrow down to what you're actually doing, and pair programming is not a silver bullet, and it's not like this whole 96% everybody thought it was better. I mean, that seems inflated, and it seems like it's not taking into account the scope of that pair programming. And maybe also it was, I mean, I don't know when pair programming was, like, pair programming could exist as long as programming has existed. I don't know when the term was coined or who coined it, or, you know, it seems like one of those things where it's not like somebody invented pair programming. It was just a thing someone noticed people did, and then a term was coined around it. So
yeah, and I feel like that was around the year 2000 ish. Like, from my experience, that's when I started hearing that term a lot. Mm-hmm. I bet if you did like a Google Trends thing, yeah, if you could do it, since that's old enough where it's a little bit more problematic to try to do that, I bet the spike is much more towards the early 2000s than it is today.
Probably, yeah. There's also links to these to like team programming or ensemble programming or posse or mob programming, which is just like everybody in the room, you know, sort of the code jam idea where everybody in the room is looking at the computer and we're all working on it together. But still, one person has to type the thing into the editor at some point, and you don't really need 10 people to type that. You know, they just So it's I think our take-home message on this, just to wrap things up, is that, you know, pair programming can be useful in certain situations. Not everybody responds to it well. Not everybody works with it well. And I don't think it's something that should be forced on people if that's not how they work well. But if it can help, then yeah, totally do it. Especially, I think we both agree that like debugging something with someone else is super helpful to have someone else to kind of bounce that. Because yeah, I've definitely been coding on stuff and felt kind of alone, even with the internet and Google and Stack Overflow and ChatGPT, and like nothing is helping. And I just kind of feel like I'm never going to solve this thing in my little silo, which happened a lot with advent of code. And I always felt better when I like went on the Slack channel and said, hey, I'm having a problem with this. I didn't need you to come over to my house or share my screen and let's hack it out together, but having the audience to bounce things off of. So this is sort of just like, I guess, a natural progression of that to where, okay, well, let's just do it together. And if you find that useful, do it.
Yeah. And I think, you know, you mentioned the ensemble programming or whatever with the code jam. I think that kind of thing works really well. I've done that tons of times.
Okay.
Not necessarily in a code jam scenario, but just like, all right, we're all swarming on this problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this piece. You take that piece. You know, you're doing the music. I'm doing this. You know, that works. And then you have that shared context that you're all working on the same type of problem. And then I think that sort of like rapid fire, like, hey, like when we were all working on Advent of Code, like you said, right? Like we could just kind of, you can ask a question and get an answer that makes sense really quickly because no one has to like come up to speed on it.
Right.
But again, someone hovering, no.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Well, and to use our own podcast as an example, when we did that Advent of Code live as part of an episode, I definitely felt at my worst because not that you were observing, but you being part of the action changed how I worked, and that's just something that like I can't turn off. So it's not dissimilar to this.
The Heisenberg uncertainty principle.
Exactly. It's all cats. It's all cats.
Yep. Cats all the way down.
All the way down. Yep. Okay. Well, I think that wraps up this episode of Hacking the Grepson on pair programming. If you want to hear more episodes of Hacking the Grepson, alone or with another person, whatever makes you feel good, go to hackingthegrepson.com. We try to put an episode out every other week on Wednesday. And until the next one, we now return you to your regularly scheduled lives already in progress.
Nice.